Hey guys, your boy 4ID. I'm an artist and a visual designer, and today we're going to be talking about identity. So, there's this odd thing that people don't really talk about, and that is the fact that sometimes we tend to hold on to a preconception or an idea of ourselves that often stops us from growth. And oftentimes you think that maybe growth is something where you have to always step forward or always walk in a straight line or a upward elevation, and not really understanding that there's actually a cycle and probably it's a zigzag road as well. And that's aside, but one of the main things that I've realized is most times one of the things that stops us from evolving is holding on to things that feel like they should be useful to us, that feel like this is my identity, like this is something that is tied to me, and this is something that everybody that knows me for. And so it's very hard for you to let go of those things. Let's say you're the funny person, and now you understand that for you to grow you have to be the person that is more indoors and not really out there, and you don't really want to do that. Let's say you're the drinker, let's say you're the person that loves drinking a lot and everybody knows you as the life of the party, but then you are hearing this, you don't understand that this is actually affecting you health wise, or let me say it's probably going to affect you health wise, and it's probably taking a toll on you. But because you want to hold on to an identity of yourself, because you want to hold on to people's idealism, like idealistic or idea of you, basically, you kind of keep that, and then that is exactly what is stopping you from growing. And I think lately this is something that's been affecting me, and I've tried as much as possible to evolve outside of that. I've tried as much as possible to stop myself from holding on to those things and just let go. And some examples of that is just maybe the fact that I really wanted to have like multiple streams of income. I really wanted to be involved in a lot of things. And lately I've been trying as much as possible to cut out those things, cut out different things, and just focus on the little things I can focus on. And that might seem disappointing in a sense that somehow you have to accept that in those things that you have to cut off, you actually not necessarily failed, but people can actually look at it like this wasn't a successful venture for you. And you have to accept that, because this is your own journey, and nobody is going to come at your deathbed and say, oh, he made it. And you're not going to hear that. You're just going to, this is you, whatever life or whatever legend you left for yourself is going to be just for you. There's nobody that's going to take that from you exactly. So you have to live for yourself in a sense. Hey, you're already here, you're already lost. Just leave a like and subscribe to this channel. You don't have to like what's going on right now. Just leave a like, subscribe, lie to the algorithm. Tell them you like it when you really don't. Like, subscribe, you see more of me. Thank you. But aside that, I felt like I was really holding on to a lot of things. I was really holding on to the fact that, let's say I was viewed as, oh, this person is very private and is not really out there, and that's something that I wanted to hold on to. But then starting up a YouTube channel can actually counter that. Let's say you are the kind of person that is a very shy person, and everybody knows you as a shy person, and everybody understands that you're shy, and it becomes like an identity for you, and you hold on to that identity and you say it that's the first thing that comes out of you whenever you meet somebody, like, oh, I'm shy, let me just let them just understand me, or oh, I'm not scary or anything. And then you realize that, oh, I have to evolve to a point where I'm now the talker, I'm now the extroverted person. You're an introvert, you have to you have to evolve to becoming an extrovert. And sometimes it's not really the best feeling, because that's like very different from who you are, but that is you. Let's say you're a spontaneous person. Let's say you live on the edge of life. You're a fast-paced person. You wake up whenever you want to wake up. You do whatever you want to do exactly, and you don't really think about much. You don't really think about the future. You're very in the moment. And then as you grow, you realize that you have to start thinking more future wise in order for you to grow. Somehow you have to start creating routines for yourself. Somehow you have to start creating schedules for yourself. And that is so different from whatever identity that you have. Because at a point you were really winning, because one of the reasons you were winning was because everybody knew you as a person that just did stuff, and you were the person that just did things impulsively. And now you have to be the person that is very calculated about what you do. And these identities can feel very subtle, but at the end of the day, these are the kind of identities that either stop you or propel you to where you want to be. And this is something that I am realizing. Basically, what as I grow, or not necessarily as I grow, or as I realize places that I need to grow, I'll probably just make that a content for you guys to understand where I'm coming from. But like I said, whenever you get to a point like this, it's always important to realize that whatever identity that you have wasn't born with you. It's not like, even I wanted to use an example of, it's not like your cells, but at the end of the day, your cells, the cells you are using right now, is not the same one you used when you were born. You are not the exact same person that you were when you were born, both physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, or whatever. It is important for you to understand that your identity cannot remain the same. You cannot remain the same person that you were when you were a kid. If you were very playful when you were a kid and you choose to be more quiet at some point in order for you to get to the next stage of life, do that. And it will be very hard, because like I said, there is, especially when it comes to business, or when it comes to something that you're doing and trying to realize that, oh, this isn't working anymore, and changing that route, it's very hard for you to be that person. It's very hard for you to change into that person, because you understand that this is something that you really want to hold on to. You really want, it is you, this is you. And now you have to, there's always this point of, I don't know what I would call it, limbo or something, but it's almost like this uncanny valley that you have to pass through, and you have to jump through that valley. But at some point, even if you have to walk through it or jump through it, there's going to be that second where you are literally on a fence, or literally in the middle of nowhere, and you're not in any of these places, and you just have to accept that you're going somewhere. And people don't, you almost like don't have an identity at that point, because you're like a sponge taking different things, and it feels weird. It feels like, what am I doing at this point? Like, where am I going with this? I really need to go back. It's like, think about a sense like when moving between Egypt and the promised land, and you're just in that middle point, and it feels like you just want to run back, because there's hunger here, there's everything, there's this feeling of like you don't really know what is next, and you don't really want to take that chance of knowing what is next, because there's a huge chance that you might just lose yourself in that journey to going somewhere else. But somehow you have to tell yourself that this, whatever you're leaving behind, is what you're leaving behind. And I mean this for everything. Even when it comes to art, there's an idea like, oh, this style, I have a particular style, and everybody knows me for a particular style, and you really don't want to change that style, because you know that this worked. And I've spoken about that before, because somehow we understand when something is working, and we understand we can you don't want to stop something when it's working. That was something I spoke about before. If you listen to the other episode about the imposter syndrome, you don't want to stop what you know is working. And while it's working, you don't want to play around and keep experimenting with it. But then it's important for you to understand when something is getting to a more like, it's not a failure stage, but more like a stagnant stage, and this isn't really what this really cannot be your story anymore. You've evolved from that story, and something, you really have to get into something else. And so at a point, leaving that space will mean that you have to experiment all over again, and that experimentation might not be accepted by people, might not feel accepted, but do not rush back to where you came from. That's basically my point. Don't feel so scared that you want to rush back because you feel like there's nowhere else to go. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep experimenting and understand that something else is coming at the end of this tunnel. There's a light at the end of that tunnel, basically, or light at the end of the toilet.
All I can say is all is well, and we're expecting light at the end of the toilet, inshallah. At the end of the tunnel, not toilet.
So the next question you might want to ask is how do I know when to leave something alone? How do I know when to evolve from something? And how do I know when to stay with it? How do I know when I'm making the wrong decision by experimenting something that shouldn't be experimented? And when can I tell when to leave? And now I would like you to think of it like a plant. Think of it in the sense that there's a point of growth where you might not really know that your plant is about to germinate. And so that's where patience is required. Either that or your plant is already there and you don't really have to start playing around with it. Like, you don't really have to plant another orange tree to get a new orange. Like, your orange tree is going to keep growing orange. Just water that and keep working on it until it gets to a point where maybe it's just going to keep going. So you can enjoy that as long as possible. But when it comes to evolving, let's say you're planted yam and it doesn't feel like it's growing, you don't really have to leave that yam alone, pack it up, and then go to another yam and start planting it, or go to another one and plant all of them, because you probably will not be able to maintain all of them at the same time. So it's better off you just wait for this one to grow. So let's use that example. You just wait for this yam to grow, and you're not seeing it growing. Now, this is where patience is required, because then you might wait a longer period of time. You might study and understand that this might take time and it might not come as early as you expect it to. So it's not so logical for you to jump into something else. But then another example is when you plant that same yam and it's coming out, and it's just coming out, and then you realize that this yam is actually dying, and then you keep watering it, but it's dead. You're watering like a dead plant. It's not the same as being patient for something that hasn't worked yet. You are focusing on something that would never probably work, and you have the way to know that something would never work or isn't going to work is just looking at the world and realizing where the world is at, in terms of you, as relating to you, looking at the world and realizing where the world is. And if the world has left where you are, if the world has evolved from where you are, you cannot keep fighting for that particular style. If you're a musician and everybody has left a particular trend of music, you can't keep fighting for that. You have to evolve from that. So that's the way you realize that you have to be able to pick between when something is about to grow and isn't growing, and when to use patience, and when to realize that something is dead and move on to something else. So that's the basic understanding of it. You have to be open to change, not in the sense of changing for the fun of it, but changing after you realize that something isn't working. And one of the main things that stops us from going to something else is our ego. Is the idea that you really don't want to accept that what you created was a failure. And most times it isn't a failure. Maybe you learned something from that. Maybe there are many ventures that I've tried and didn't work, and I know how much I learned from that to put it into something else. So most times you don't really fail in the sense of you can't do anything else, or this isn't working and you failed in that venture. Most times you learn from that. But the truth is that our ego holds us back from the concept of leaving something or letting something go. Our ego makes us feel like, what are people going to say? Are people going to say that I did something and it didn't work? You don't want to let that go, and most times you end up just sticking to something that isn't ever going to work. So that ego thing is something that you have to realize. You have to understand that your ego has to die when it comes to creating. When it comes to being a creator, when it comes to succeeding as a creator, your ego has to die, because there's a lot of push and pull that is going to happen in your process of creating. Whether you're an inventor, whether you're a musician, there's a lot of push and pull. There's a huge chance that nobody's going to like what you create, and there's also a huge chance that people are going to love it. And so your mental health cannot be tied to that push and pull project. You have to be able to accept when something isn't working, and don't always try and push it and go back to it and make it work. You have to be able to say, this didn't work, let me move on to something else. So I'll be talking about this maybe deeper in some other conversations, but I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you like this project. I hope you like what I was talking about right now. If you did, let me know in the comments. Ask me any question that you'd like me to talk about next time, and I will see you another day. Thank you very much for listening. I remain 4ID, and subscribe to this channel. By the way, subscribe to this channel, share share this channel, like and comment. Peace.